Terrific. Happy Madison Productions, a studio that is considered the laughingstock of the movie industry, known to be the bottom of the barrel when it comes to movies, that has earned the ire of critics and the wrath of all audiences alike. Why is that? Why is Happy Madison looked down upon? Why do they continue to produce such low-quality films? And can they get out of the place where they're at? Well, let's take a look at what ruined Happy Madison Productions. Our story begins with a guy named Adam Sandler, who started Happy Madison in 1999, and named the company after two of his most iconic movies, Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison, which is what I suspected. He even got his dad here to be in the logo, Stanley Sandler, and he's the guy that said terrific in the logo. My computer doesn't have sound, so I had to take his place in saying terrific. Although, Happy Madison's films weren't always terrific. In fact, they weren't even masterpieces. But we'll get into that later. Their first film was Deuce-Bigalow, Male Gigolo, or Gigolo, in 1999. It cost $17 million to make, and made $92.9 million at the box office. So it was a financial success. However, it wasn't well received by critics, which is a reputation that would continue to follow Happy Madison Productions. By making movies that do well at the box office, but are trashed by critics. Throughout the 2000s, Happy Madison continued to produce the same type of film over and over, with the same type of humor, the same actors most of the time. There were instances where they got different actors, with the same kinds of cliches. Little Nicky, Mr. Deeds, 50 First Dates, The Benchwarmers, Click, Bedtime Stories, and many more. Throughout the 2000s, the Happy Madison films were at their prime. They were everywhere. Every year, they would release 2 to 3 Happy Madison films every year. And though some weren't as successful as others, Happy Madison still had a strong presence in the theaters. However, things would change in 2010s. Although they had a great start with Grown Ups making $271.4 million off an $80 million budget, things would soon go downhill for Happy Madison, and it would only get worse from there. In 2011, Adam released his most infamous films, Jack and Jill, and Just Go With It. Okay guys, please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, because I'm not entirely sure. Although Just Go With It made some good money, with making $215 million off an $80 million budget, Jack and Jill was a complete disaster. And again, please correct me if I'm wrong, because this is the only thing I'm not sure about, but I'm pretty sure that Jack and Jill had a very short run in theaters, and it was pulled because of the critics' hatred for the movie. And by the way, they spent a lot of money on the marketing. If you were in 2011, you will know that they marketed the hell out of this movie. So that's probably a big cause of the movie's downfall. And this is when Happy Madison began to decline. After Jack and Jill, they were known as the studio that made some of the worst movies that were ever released in theaters. As the studio that makes garbage movies that are both offensive and cringeworthy. However, for the few years that they had in theaters, they continued to release some profitable movies, but were still hated by critics. Here Comes the Boom, Grown Ups 2, which that actually has a bit of a legacy. It actually made more money in theaters than Pacific Rim did. Blended, which kinda picked up Adam Sandler's career, but wasn't enough to wash away the horrible taste of Jack and Jill. A sequel to Paul Blart Mall Cop, and finally, their last theatrical release, Pixels. Possibly. When Pixels was released, it pulled in an impressive $244.9 million off of a $129 million budget. However, from the critics, ouch. After Pixels, Happy Madison ended its partnership with Sony and made a deal with Netflix. And this is where Adam Sandler's career and Happy Madison Productions' reputation takes a turn for the worse. In 2015, Adam Sandler released his first Netflix film, The Ridiculous Six, and it was a total disaster critically. It holds a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it is one of the lowest rated movies of all time. Next was The Do-Over. It was a big step up from last time, only with a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes. Well, actually it's 9% now, since the critics have rated it higher. The next few movies he made included Sandy Wexler, The Week Of, Murder Mystery, The Meyerowitz Stories, which he collabed with Ben Stiller, The Wrong Missy, and his latest film, Hubie Halloween, which we'll get into later. At this point, it was quite clear that Adam Sandler's career and Happy Madison Productions were in a bad spot. Adam Sandler's career was very close to coming to an end, and it was questionable if Happy Madison Productions would even stay alive for much longer. In order to save both his career and his company, he needed a major comeback. He needed a film role so good that it would completely revive his career. And it came in the form of Uncut Gems. Now, a lot of critics who reviewed Adam Sandler's earlier films, they commented how he has a great knack for dramatic acting, and that he isn't just good at comedy. So Adam Sandler thought he'd give it a try. One thing to note about Uncut Gems is this was very different from Adam's earlier films. While the vast majority of his films were comedies, this was much more serious. And it was a great first step for Adam to find new life as an actor, to actually be taken seriously in cinema. And in 2019, it worked. Uncut Gems was praised by critics everywhere, and it was a huge hit at the box office, making $50 million off a $19 million budget. Critics loved his performance so much that he got buzzed for an Oscar nomination. Sadly, he wasn't nominated. This was discouraging for Adam Sandler, and this is what connects us to the last Netflix film that was recently released, Hubie Halloween. Now, Adam Sandler actually said that if he didn't get a nomination for an Oscar, he would purposely make a terrible film so that all the people who didn't think he was worthy of an Oscar nomination would suffer through a tremendously terrible film. And it looks like he kept his promise. On Halloween of 2020, Hubie Halloween was released on Netflix, and honestly, this is strange. People are divided on this. I mean, there are a lot of people that actually hate this movie, but there are some people that found enjoyment in it. That's weird. But it was a huge step down from Uncut Gems, and so this is where I ask the question: what ruined Happy Madison? Number 1, comedy fatigue. Almost all of Happy Madison's films has the same kind of humor. It's funny the first few times, but when that's all the comedy that you can present to your audience, they're gonna walk out on you. That's the reason why most of these films are panned, because most of their jokes are juvenile, insulting, or just plain crude. Audiences are looking for more than just comedy and loud noises. Though, to be fair, Happy Madison has made some films that really tug at your heartstrings, like Click. That movie's awesome and very underrated. But most of the time, Happy Madison puts the focus into all the wrong areas, focusing on their humor and less on their story. And that is not enough to leave an impact on your audience. Number 2. Now, please don't get mad at me, but the Netflix deal. Let me explain. Happy Madison Productions made a lot of money when they were releasing films in theaters, but their popularity and overall presence in the movie industry started to decline when they took the Netflix deal. Keep in mind, streaming movies is a relatively young technique still. Sorry about that, my tongue slipped. That's why you kind of heard it hissing, but yeah, that was just a tongue twist. Sorry about that. Anyway, we haven't quite broken into the renaissance of streaming, where the streaming industry really explodes in popularity, and people go to streaming for their main experience for movies. And that's why Happy Madison Productions has started to go downhill. They were making boatloads of money when they were releasing films in theaters, but their money soon started to dwindle when they started releasing movies straight to Netflix. Studios don't make as much money on Netflix as they do in theaters. That's why Disney still wants to release some movies in theaters, because they can make more than on Disney+. Many people still love going to the movie theater to experience the movie, They don't want to just stay at home watching it on Netflix. Going to a movie theater is a wonderful experience, and you can't get that experience on Netflix. And that's why movie theaters are still such bigger moneymakers than streaming services. I know that Adam Sandler had his quarrels with Sony, but if he ever wanted to bring his company back to its peak, then he should consider moving out of Netflix and finding a studio to distribute his films. Because that's the only way his films can make an impact on cinema and in the movie industry. I mean, look at Uncut Gems. That was released in theaters, and that got him buzz for an Oscar nomination. You never heard any buzz about him getting an Oscar nomination for any of his Netflix films, and that's because Netflix or any streaming service isn't as impactful on the movie industry like movie theaters are. And thus, Adam Sandler really made a stupid decision when he partnered with Netflix. It took a turn for the worse on his company and on his career. And that is one of the reasons why Happy Madison Productions continued to decline. It took a downward spiral on Happy Madison Productions and on Adam Sandler's career. And finally, number 3, a lack of creativity. Now, I have said before, Adam Sandler's films can be creative. Look at Click. Look at Bedtime Stories. Look at 50 First Dates. They all have interesting concepts. But Adam Sandler's later films, like The Ridiculous Six, Murder Mystery, they have interesting concepts, but they all follow the same formula. If Adam Sandler really wants to make an impact in the film industry, then he needs to start getting creative and actually care about what he's making. He needs to start experimenting with what he can do. He has talent. He does have a gift for dramatic acting. He can be funny from time to time, but he's not utilizing his other talents. He's just sticking to what he knows, comedy. And like I said, an audience is looking for more than that. They want something that really speaks to them, that really blows them away. Something new, something inventive, something fresh, something creative, something original. But all Happy Madison has been doing is just churning out the same crap. And until they start caring, they are just going to be known for making bad films. Movies that lack intelligence, creativity, wit, and are only there to steal your money. And that is not a good reputation to have. Overall, Happy Madison is in a bad spot. They have the money to do great things, but they aren't using it to really make an impression on audiences. They seem to be fine and okay with making the same type of film over and over and over, with the same formula, with the same lowbrow humor, the same bad writing, and the same sense of, I don't care. And unless they change that, their studio will only cement their bad reputation. Honestly, it's hard to see Happy Madison's future at this point. It's quite possible they won't survive. Their doom is guaranteed if they don't change their ways, but I don't hope that for them. I hope that they get their act together. Maybe they'll present something that will blow everyone away. But who knows? Only time will tell. So guys, what's your opinion of Happy Madison? Do you like their films, or are you with the critics and you absolutely hate them? Let me know down in the comments. I'll see you guys later.